Snow was falling hard over a small town in upstate New York, turning the quiet streets into icy rivers of white. The neon sign of Mary's Place Diner flickered restlessly in the wind, a beacon of worn yellow and red, the last bit of color in the otherwise monochromatic, gray night. Inside, Mary Thompson, a woman whose face was etched with the silent fatigue of long-carried grief, wiped down the counter, humming softly to an old country tune on the radio. The clock on the wall read 10:45 p.m., well past closing time. She was just about to lock the door and retreat into the familiar silence of her small apartment above the diner when the door suddenly swung open. A fierce gust of freezing wind and 6 towering figures in heavy winter uniforms burst in. Their faces were pale and deeply tired, their thick boots soaked through with melting snow, and their breath came out in ragged clouds. One of them, clearly their captain, removed his cold hat and asked, his voice weary but respectful, "Ma'am, I'm truly sorry. It's late. Is there any chance at all you're still serving?" Mary looked at them for a long, silent moment. They looked young, perhaps the exact age her son, Daniel, had been when he joined the army. Her heart, long heavy with absence, softened instantly. "Sit yourselves down, boys," she said warmly, her voice gaining a surprising strength. "You look half frozen. I'll get you something hot." As the soldiers collapsed gratefully onto the booth seats, their shoulders visibly relaxed, shedding some of the night's immense cold. Mary moved quickly and efficiently behind the counter, heating up her renowned homemade chicken soup and pouring steaming mugs of strong coffee. The rich, comforting smell of food instantly filled the small diner, and soon the sound of spoons clinking against bowls echoed softly, a sound of life returning. One soldier, guilt visible in his eyes, tried to hand her a few bills. "Ma'am, we really appreciate this. We've been on the road all day, fighting that blizzard. Please, let us pay." But Mary shook her head firmly, wiping her hands on her apron. "Not a chance. My son was in the army too. He always said the cold was the worst part of deployment. Consider this a mother's favor." The soldiers exchanged silent looks of profound gratitude. For a few minutes, the world outside simply didn't matter. The crushing storm, the darkness, the loneliness of the road all faded. Inside that little diner, there was warmth, quiet laughter, and the palpable, unmistakable smell of home. Mary sat with them for a while, listening to their exhausted stories. They told her about the blizzard that had closed vital highways and about their emergency mission to deliver critical medical supplies to a stranded hospital farther upstate. She laughed genuinely when one of them, a young private who looked barely old enough to shave, admitted he hadn't seen a proper hot meal in 2 full days. Before leaving, their captain stood and spoke quietly, his voice thick with sincerity. "Ma'am, thank you. You didn't have to do this, but you did, and it means more than you can possibly know." Mary smiled and waved them off as they climbed back into their trucks, the headlights slowly fading into the swirling, unforgiving snow. She locked the door and stood for a moment, staring out into the white silence. She felt a strange, restorative warmth bloom in her chest, a peace she hadn't felt since she received the devastating telegram 2 years prior. Helping those soldiers, comforting them, had reminded her of her son Daniel and had given her heart a sense of purpose again. She didn't know that her simple act of kindness that night would travel far beyond her little diner, and that by morning, the entire U.S. Army would know her name. If this quiet act of generosity has touched your heart, please take a moment to subscribe to Chroma Chronicles. We honor sacrifices often overlooked by the world. Mary woke the next morning not to the sound of her alarm, but to the deep, unsettling rumble of powerful engines shaking her window panes. Still half asleep, she pulled back the curtain and froze instantly. Military trucks, not 6, but dozens, lined both sides of her quiet residential street. Soldiers were setting up official barricades, and a small command center was being established just outside the front door of Mary's Place Diner. The entire neighborhood was buzzing with terrified confusion. Her heart pounding with dread, Mary threw on her old coat and rushed outside, her slippers sinking into the fresh snow. "What in the world is going on?" she asked the nearest soldier, her voice sharp with alarm. He turned, and to her utter surprise, it was the same captain from the night before. He smiled, but it was a formal, serious smile. "Good morning, ma'am. Sorry for the commotion. We needed to make a very important stop here before moving on." Mary frowned, brushing her gray hair from her worried face. "A stop here? Why my diner? Are you here because of a highway closure?" The captain's expression softened, becoming intensely sincere. "Because, ma'am, what you did last night didn't go unnoticed. The men you helped are part of a critical medical transport division. They made it through the worst part of the blizzard because of the 2 hours of warmth and hot food you gave them. They were able to deliver those supplies and, in doing so, save several lives at a stranded hospital farther upstate. Mary gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "My lord, I just gave them soup. That's all." The captain's smile was unwavering. "Sometimes a simple bowl of soup makes all the difference, Mary." Then he nodded to his men. They pulled a thick, olive-drab cover away from something large they were carrying. It was a shining, beautifully etched bronze plaque. It read, in deeply carved lettering, "In honor of Mary Thompson, for serving those who serve us." Below the words was the proud emblem of the U.S. Army, and beneath it, an inscription that made Mary's knees nearly give out. Thompson Way, dedicated to the memory of Private Daniel Thompson. Daniel, her son, the boy she'd lost 2 years earlier in the sands of Afghanistan. The captain caught her gently by the arm, steadying her. "Your son's story reached us, ma'am. We wanted to honor both of you. The Army doesn't forget kindness or sacrifice from the battlefield or the home front." Tears streamed down Mary's face, blurring the bronze lettering. Her neighbors stood in stunned silence, many of them wiping their own eyes. A bugler stepped forward and began to play taps, the mournful, dignified notes drifting through the cold morning air. Soldiers lined up and saluted her one by one, their hands crisp against their caps. Mary could barely speak. "I never expected anything like this," she whispered, overwhelmed. "I just did what any mother would do." The captain's voice was steady and respectful. "You did more than most, ma'am. You reminded us what we fight for, people like you." As the local news crews filmed and the townspeople applauded, the sun broke through the gray clouds for the first time that day. For the first time in years, Mary felt something she thought she'd lost forever: pride. Pride not just for her son, but for the small, simple act of love that had brought an entire army to her doorstep to recognize his memory. Weeks passed, but the memory of that snowy morning never faded from Mary's mind or the town's. The new street sign, Thompson Way, gleamed proudly under the winter sun, a daily, powerful reminder of her late son's service and her simple act of kindness. If you believe that every sacrifice deserves to be publicly honored, please comment below to share your thoughts on Mary's dignity and the Army's gesture. The diner, once a quiet corner spot, was now alive with laughter and conversation every day. Veterans sat beside travelers, families beside truckers. On one wall, Mary hung the bronze Army plaque right above the booth where those 6 soldiers had sat that night. Next to it, she framed a photograph of her son Daniel in uniform, his proud smile forever frozen in time. Mary never let the attention change her. She still arrived before dawn to brew coffee and bake biscuits, and still greeted every customer with a warm smile. To her, the diner wasn't just a place to eat. It was a home for anyone who needed a bit of warmth in their life. Years later, on one rainy afternoon, a young soldier stepped in, dripping wet and clearly exhausted. He couldn't have been older than 20. Mary noticed the fatigue in his eyes, the same look she'd seen in her son's years ago. She poured him a cup of coffee and asked, "Long day?" He nodded, sighing. "Yes, ma'am, heading back to base. Roads are a mess, and I just needed somewhere to sit for a while." Mary smiled gently. "Well, you picked the right place, soldier. Get comfortable, I'll fix you something hot." He tried to protest when she brought out a plate of stew and cornbread. "I'll pay for this, ma'am," he said, pulling out his wallet. Mary shook her head, just as she always did. "No need for that. This one's on me." The young man paused, confused. "Why would you do that?" She smiled softly, her eyes glistening. "Because once upon a time, 6 soldiers stopped here on a night like this. I didn't charge them either, and somehow it changed everything." The soldier smiled back, realizing who she was. "You're her," he said quietly. "The woman from Thompson Way?" Mary chuckled. "That's what they tell me." We want to hear more stories of everyday heroism. If you have witnessed an act of kindness that led to an unexpected reckoning or reward, submit your story to Chroma Chronicles. Your account honors the good in the world. Every year afterward, on the anniversary of that stormy night, a group of soldiers would visit the diner to thank her. They brought flowers, medals, and stories from the road. And every time, Mary said the same thing: "You boys don't owe me a thing. Just stay warm, stay safe, and never forget to help someone when you can." Her diner became a legend, her kindness a permanent lesson. And even after Mary Thompson was gone, Mary's place stayed open, still serving free meals to soldiers passing through, still shining like a light in the storm. For more stories of profound honor and sacrifice, click on the video now showing the veteran's silent debt for another chronicle that proves kindness is its own reward. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the moments where simple actions earn extraordinary honor. Thank you for witnessing this powerful story. This is Chroma Chronicles, signing off.